I'm the dude. So that's what you call me.
Are you a virgin?
Yeah, not since I was 10.
Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret.
Come on to the coast. We get together, have a few laughs.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Can I return it if it doesn't fit?
It always fits. Eventually.
Welcome back, Movie Minglers. It's that time again. Another Wednesday's here. I'm Caveman.
And I'm Maggie.
And today we're on episode 18 and we're covering Midsommar.
Oh boy.
Yes, I've been waiting for this one.
Because you've been waiting for me to watch it?
I'm waiting for you to watch it, but it's also one of my favorite movies.
You do fucking love this movie.
I've seen this movie so many times. I bought it on Blu-ray, the director's cut on Blu-ray from the A24 store. Which is
a beautiful Blu-ray box set.
Available.
I will say that that whole Blu-ray box setup is gorgeous.
The only thing I was a little disappointed about that particular Blu-ray is that it has no special features at all. I have a digital version of the movie, which also has no special features. There is a Blu-ray version, of course, but I don't own it, and it does have special features. So one day I might have to buy this
you're gonna get
again.
It. Like you might have to. You're just gonna fucking do it. Like,
do it.
Come on.
You know me.
Yeah.
Yay, physical media.
Give me the deets.
Well, before we start, we are gonna have a shot of tequila.
Oh.
After we drank a lot of tequila last night.
So much.
So somebody's feeling a little hungover.
Just a tiny bit.
But we won't have any more after this.
No.
So.
This is important because in the movie they drink a lot.
They drink a lot and there's a lot of drug use.
A lot of drug use,
yes, a lot.
So Skull.
Skull.
Oh. She good.
All right.
Oh.
I think I'm feeling last night's effects still.
Oh, God.
Also, before we get into the movie, I just want to have one quick warning. Obviously, if you've seen this, if you have not seen this movie, don't be listening just.
Yeah, this is not one of the podcast episodes that you should probably listen to without at least like Wikipedia in the plot or.
But if you don't want to watch this movie because you just don't want to see something like this.
I didn't
what this movie
want to
is. I do just want to warn everybody out there that there is going to be heavy talk with suicide, the subject of suicide. There's a lot of that in this movie. So
a lot of murder.
If that's gonna
teeny bit of rape.
If that's gonna trigger you a bit, please skip this episode.
Yeah.
We
should really. I mean, suicide is such a kind of a horrifying subject for so many people that we really should trigger warning. We should have done more for trigger warnings in our past episodes, and we haven't. But this one is. This one
has a
movie.
lot of it.
Yeah, and there is a lot of self-harm, a lot of suicide, a lot of drug use, a lot of murder, a teeny bit of rape. I guess the scene at the end with Christian and it
wasn't rape though. She wanted it.
Yeah, but he didn't necessarily.
That's true.
Yeah.
He was kind of forced. Well, but he wanted it too.
Yeah, but
we'll get into that. So
we're just saying there's a lot of very important and serious themes in this film that we will be covering in our own way. It's just like if you guys need to skip this one, we get it.
We understand. Yeah.
And if you've seen this movie, enjoy it. And if you haven't seen this movie, if you were very curious about our take on it, at least get a plot synopsis.
What we're going to be talking about.
And kind of go through that so that you're a bit more aware.
Judge it for yourself.
I will say that going into this movie, I knew what had happened in it because I, being a renowned not fan of horror movies, I have read a lot of Wikipedia pages on horror films because although I don't like watching them, I do like being a part of the conversation. So I will at the very least find out. Caveman's shaking his head at me right now, but this is just, it's how I do it when it comes to movies that I don't want to watch, but I want to know what happens because I'm curious and also a coward. So I did know what this movie was going into it. It's been out for 5 years. This movie is a very large part. I mean, there's a huge kind of, it's been memed. It's been talked about. It's been made fun of. It's been parodied. It's been like, at length, this movie is out there. Like, this movie and the plot of it and what happens. It's not just that I went into Wikipedia a few years back and decided to read what happens. This movie's been spoiled for me just as, it's been out
Just
for 5
being in
years
pop
and
culture.
It's pop culture.
Yeah,
So
it's popular enough, even though it's a tiny indie film.
I knew what it
it's
was
out.
going into it. I mean, a bit more than like Ex Machina. I didn't know as much about what Ex Machina was going into that. So everybody that I know that loves movies fucking loves this movie. I've had so many people in my life, and not just you, my sweet husband. I've had so many people talk about how much they fucking love this movie. I've heard stories about people taking mushrooms and going and seeing it. I've heard people talk about, and that's the other thing is that this movie has been out for so long and it is so beloved that I will say to people, "Oh, I've never seen it," and their response was like, "Oh my god, you're in for the craziest fucking ride! Like, it's gonna be so good. You don't even know. I fucking love this movie." This movie was hyped up a lot for me, which has hurt it a little bit.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
This movie gets hyped up a lot.
I want to see this movie again.
Wow, I'm surprised by that. I mean,
Yeah.
now that you've seen it, now you know the story beats.
Yes.
You know the.
I've been
you know
dying to
what
talk to you
happens.
about this movie. We finished it yesterday. We're recording today. There were a couple times last night that I looked at Caveman and went, I just want to talk to you about Midsommar. I want to get into this movie, but first, Caveman, give me the deets.
I wanna share with everybody who hasn't seen this movie or doesn't know all the details about it, and it's one of my favorite parts about this podcast is I just get to nerd out on all the technical stuff and maybe talk about some other movies you haven't watched or heard of. This movie was written and directed by Ari Aster in 2019, or at least released in 2019. This is his second film. A lot like when we talked about Get Out, how much I love keeping up with a new director, and I don't have to, doesn't feel like homework where I have to watch 15 films that came before it to catch up so I can complete their filmography.
Mm-hmm.
So like Jordan Peele, Ari Aster has only directed 3 films so far: Hereditary, Midsommar, and Beau is Afraid. Beau is Afraid is not on this list, which is great for Maggie.
Yeah, I will not watch that
Maggie,
movie.
I will not force Maggie to watch Beau is Afraid. I will not ask of her to do it, like to be a completionist and watch everything that Ari Aster has done. Hereditary is already on this list, which is bad enough for her. Because
I don't want to watch
Hereditary is definitely a scarier film.
I don't want to watch that movie. Please don't make me watch that movie. All right, but I'm allowed to hide.
It's fine. You thought you had to hide from this one too, and we'll get into all that.
Okay.
We'll get into all that.
Yeah.
But Beau is Afraid is a completely different type of movie than these first two. I think these first two, A24 was able. I think they bought these movies from Ari Aster and his production and from the producers that helped make this movie. And Hereditary. I think Beau is Afraid was like at the time before Civil War came out. A24's Civil War that Alex Garland also did. This was, I think, the most expensive, or Beau is Afraid was the most expensive movie. I think they spent $30 million on it, and I think it made less than 10 back. It was a huge project for Ari Aster, and I think they pretty much just said, congratulations on doing these 2 amazing films. Now you get to just do whatever you want in the third one. And he does whatever he wants. And it turns out to be insane. If you haven't seen Beau is Afraid, first of all, because if you haven't seen it by now, it's not for you.
Yeah.
I don't mean to gatekeep Ari Aster films, but Beau is Afraid is a completely different type of film the people that went and saw it in the theater, I came back, like especially coworkers that went and saw it, were fans of him and came back and were like, Beau is Afraid is amazing. I was like, right, it is. When I went and saw Beau is Afraid in the theater, I was the only one there. I had the entire theater to myself, and I loved it. I got to just enjoy a big screen without the need of other people being there and criticizing it while they were there. I just watched a movie called Kill Your Neighbors or something like that. It's a really tiny independent film on Shudder, and the great thing they talk about prog rock a lot. It's so ridiculous. It's a silly film, but I really enjoyed it. But one of the things that Jonah Ray says a lot in that film is people won't get it, but the ones that do are the important. Those are the important people that you want to keep. So it's a great way of having artists being like, people just don't understand, man. But the ones who do are the ones that you appreciate, are true fans. And sure,
I'm rolling my eyes so
please
hard
do,
at that.
please do, because it's true though. With certain artists, it's so true. You can't judge some of these movies. It's hard, and like I said, Beau is Afraid is not for everybody, which is why it did so bad in the theater. But
I love going to the movies. I love watching movies. I love the films that I love, right? And I love being surprised by films that I didn't think I was going to like, but I really enjoyed. And I love going to see movies that I thought I was going to love, and then I didn't. And then I get to talk about why I didn't. I love film. But you love it more and deeper, and I'm okay with that. Because, like, I, as a anxious and depressed person, cannot handle certain themes in movies, certain types of movies. You know, I don't do well with things that are super anxiety ridden. I don't do well with things that are very violent against women. I don't like horror because they're both of those things. You know, I don't like art house films because they're pretentious. I just like, so some people would be like, oh, she's not a real movie fan because she hasn't watched blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that's not real true, because I'm a fan of the things that I like, right? Yeah. I love movies, but you fucking love movies. And you will watch things that I won't. Like, I will happily rewatch, like, my favorite films instead of watching something new, just in case I don't like it. But you will watch those new things. You'll try new artists and directors. You'll hear the buzz about something, and you'll get into it in a different way. And I think that that's cool. And I love that you have that. That for you, movies are different than they are for me. And, like, yeah, we can sit down and watch Captain America Civil War, and we can talk at length about the incredible stunts and how Bucky Barnes is just the softest, sweetest boy in the whole wide world. And you know, why Zemo is the greatest MCU villain. And we can have these deep, thoughtful conversations on Batman and the Lord of the Rings and, you know, fucking Furiosa, which you enjoyed and I kind of didn't. I'm a bit more torn on. And I appreciate that you have your friends, like your buddy Danny, who we need to get on this podcast.
We will.
You know, to talk about the more intense, more artsy, more terrifying, more weird. I'm glad that you have that. And I love that you have your love of films that's so different than mine, because, like, it's this beautiful Venn diagram, right? Our relationship and our relationship with movies, because there's this huge section that we like together, but then there are these sections on either sides that I love that you don't, and that you love that I don't. And I think it's great. My whole point of this is saying, I think it's great that you love films as much as you do, and that you're willing to go see weird shit like Beau is Afraid, and you get it, and you understand it, and you love it. And then when you find somebody else that likes it too, you can be like, oh my God, you know. For me, it's like finding out that somebody knows who Glenn Hansard is, or, you know, not too long ago when I found out that this woman that I'd been, like, kind of quasi-friends with for a couple of months loves Lord Huron as much as I do, the great band Lord Huron. And then we, like, clicked on that, and then we deep dove into a bunch of other things that we found out that we have in common, and now I've got a new great friend, right? It's wonderful to connect with people over weird, obscure things, because it's a way of saying, here's this, like, small part of me that I want to be validated, and you validate it. So I think it's cool.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I love, this obsession with film has always been with me. I love watching anything from a 2-star film to a 5-star film.
What did you say yesterday to me about bad movies? The great part about watching a lot of movies is you know when they're truly bad. You can tell a truly bad movie.
It was essentially like there are movies
that you can tell a really bad movie.
We were trying to watch the
Eternals.
The Eternals again.
Eternals.
We'd only seen the MCU's Eternals once in theaters,
We
and
made it about 22 minutes.
So
we
tried to rewatch it, and I was explaining to Maggie that when you watch so many movies ranging from half stars to 5 stars, the more you watch, the more you understand what a truly terrible movie is, and the more you see what a truly great movie is. And I usually like everything in between.
It is so rare for you to dislike a movie, but when you dislike a movie, it's so funny to me.
The first Meg movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's a completely terrible movie, but it's so fun to watch. Whereas Meg 2 is just a garbage film that's not even fun to watch.
I walked in on Caveman watching the Meg 2. I got off work and came home, and he was halfway through this movie, and so he was finishing it. And sitting next to him while he bitched about how bad this movie was so much fun for me. Like, I fall in love with you again every single day because you're my soulmate and I love you. But, like, watching you hate on a film just... it feeds a part of my soul, and I love it. It's so funny watching you rant and rave about a movie that you don't like, because they're rare, and it's great. I hope... for the most part, Whiplash was a movie that you didn't like, but, like, even that wasn't as peak enjoyment for me as, like, watching you shit on the Meg 2. So I hope that at some point... we can do a podcast where you get to talk about a movie that you truly don't like and why, because it's so entertaining.
It's one of the things I miss about Twitter, classic Twitter, where I could get on
the
Twitter,
early days of Twitter,
watch a terrible film, and then just tweet through it.
I miss live tweeting things.
Yeah, live tweeting, yeah.
Like, you can kind of do it on Threads. It's just not the same.
It's not the same.
But, like, there was a joy in those early 2010s of live tweeting something on Twitter. The Oscars, a movie that you've seen 100 times, the assassination of Osama bin Laden. That was one of my most favorite nights on Twitter because fuck, the jokes were good. Like, there was a joy in live tweeting things, and I miss it too.
Get back into Midsommar.
Oh my god, we're talking about Midsommar.
I love it. So the music for Midsommar was done by an artist named The Haxon Cloak. He has a couple albums on Spotify. I was going to listen to them before this recording, but ran out of time. One of them is a self-titled album from 2011, and then the other one's called Excavation from 2013. From what I've heard from his music, it's very kind of electronic, and it's very short snippets that I've heard, and not really my thing, but I will probably listen to a couple tracks later on my own time. I really like the music in this one. It's a lot of strings, and it's like a lot of practical music.
By affected, I mean, I don't remember it.
Really?
Yeah, versus, like, I remember the anxiety that it caused, like, the emotion in it, but I couldn't tell you a theme.
The music goes so well with what's happening around Danny, especially. It's eerie. Mm-hmm. There's a moment, especially towards the end, where all the women are going to dance around the maypole and find a May Queen, where it starts where they start bowing slowly, and the strings just...
Yeah.
It's anyways, we'll get into that. His real name is Bobby Krillick. He's a British artist, composer, music producer based in LA. He has two, like I said, his 2 albums are self-titled and Excavation. He also worked on the music for Beau Was Afraid and Blue Beetle, which is interesting. And the same cinematographer from Ari Aster's films also worked on Blue. The composer also worked on the two TV shows Snowpiercer, which I think I watched one episode of and haven't gone back to, even though it did look really interesting. But the Bong Joon-ho's Snowpiercer, the movie, is so good, which I think we mentioned in our Parasite podcast. If you haven't listened to our Parasite podcast, please listen. And another TV show that I haven't finished because it wasn't jiving with me, even though I love the comic book, was for Paper Girls, which was a Hulu production. Paper Girls was written by Brian K. Vaughan, who also did Saga. But anyway, Bobby Krilic has done the music for Paper Girls and Snowpiercer. The cinematography for Midsommar was Paweł Pogorzelski. He has been Ari Aster's cinematographer on all three of his films. And also, like I said earlier, Blue Beetle. There's a movie called Fresh that I've seen.
With Sebastian Stan.
With Sebastian Stan.
Yeah, I've been wanting to watch that too.
So we might have to catch that one, but it's got the same cinematographer who does
The cinematography of Midsommar is amazing.
That's one of the things that really draws me to Ari Aster films is the cinematography and the story. He also did another movie that I haven't watched with Bob Odenkirk called Nobody. It's a film called Nobody with Bob Odenkirk. Everybody tells me it's fantastic. I haven't gotten to it. It's not streaming on anything I have. It might be on like Freevee or something, but I don't have that. And I might just have to rent it one day.
Bob Odenkirk also has an incredible singing voice, which I learned by watching a Glenn Hansard concert that was live streamed from New York into my bedroom one night through a streaming thing that like you can pay to watch live concerts. Anyways, like I paid them $12 to watch a front row seat of a Glenn Hansard concert from halfway across the country, and it was incredible. But he brought out Bob Odenkirk to sing a song called Philanderer, and I was just
I remember
gagged.
I didn't see the whole thing, but
I was screaming at Caveman to come into the room.
Yeah, I saw that performance.
It was such a good performance. So he's a great actor
and singer. Midsommar is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with a critics score of 83% and an audience score of 63, which I completely understand why it's got an audience score of 63. Horror films often get low audience scores, and while critics like it, whereas the Oscars not so much. It was made for $9 million, and that's the wonderful thing again about horror films or films that fall into the horror category, even though they don't really think of this movie as horror. Maybe a little disturbing, but
the
not...
Swedish consider it a black comedy.
It was made for $9 million, and it made $50 million worldwide, and that includes the DVD and Blu-ray sales, because I think I was one of those people who missed out on the theatrical release of Midsommar and made up for it by buying, or in the future, 3 different versions of the movie. While you're talking and I'm listening, I promise you I'm listening. I'm also on Tumblr looking at Midsommar just things, and somebody on Letterboxd left a Midsommar review that just reads, "I'm so glad Ari Aster clearly never went to therapy." And that's very apparent when you watch Beau's Afraid.
Oh boy.
So the cast of Midsommar, a lot of baby actors that have since gone on to do some great things. Florence Pugh, of course, we know her from the MCU now that she's been introduced as Scarlett Johansson's character's
yeah, she's a Black
sister.
Widow.
Yeah, she's a Black Widow.
You mean Florence? Pew pew.
Pew pew. She was also in The Outlaw King with Chris Pine. It's on Netflix. Please watch Outlaw King. It's so good, and I never hear anybody talk about it, which is too bad. Jack Rayner, who is not that big of an actor, they may have been trying to get him into other things. He was in one of the worst Transformers movies, Age of Extinction from 2014.
He's done a lot of things in Britain, where he's from. He's done a lot of like British shows and films.
I get that. Age of Extinction, not the worst Transformers movie. That was later with the Night King or whatever that stupid movie was called. Archie Madekwe, who played Kofun in the TV series C on Apple TV Plus. Really good series with Jason Momoa. First season, amazing. The second two were okay, but Kofun was a really interesting character, and he was also in Saltburn. He played Farley in Saltburn, which we will get into Saltburn on a later date on this podcast. It is on the list. Also a really good movie and really good performance by that actor. He was also in Gran Turismo, which I was not expecting too much from Gran Turismo by the trailer, but after seeing it, I really like that movie and his performance. It was, I think, in my top 20 films from last year. Will Poulter, who I have not seen in a lot of things. Obviously, he was Adam Warlock in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And he was also one of the not great characters or actors in Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I didn't really care for him.
He played the cousin.
Eustace Scrub.
Yeah.
Who already is a terrible character, even in the book, but...
That guy got the Marvel glow up, and I hope he runs with it, because up until that point, he looked like Sid from the Toy Story movies.
He does look like Sid.
And that's just, you just kind of can't help but hold that against him.
Oh my god, that's Sid.
That's Sid, yeah.
That's
he's
Sid
he's legit been stopped by people being like, I loved you in Toy Story. And he's like, that's a cartoon, right?
We do. They obviously modeled your face. And then Will Poulter was also in the Maze Runner movies, which aren't great. The first one's okay, but the ones that came after were not great. And then William Jackson Harper from The Good Place is really the only thing that I know him from.
Mm-hmm. Cheaty.
Yeah. And then after that, there's just a bunch of Swedish actors who I don't know. Well, Maggie, I know I've been talking a lot about some of the technical stuff of Midsommar, and I know I've been making you wait a long-ass time to talk about it. So please tell me your thoughts on Midsommar.
Yeah, because this is like the first time you really get to hear it. I liked it.
Is that a question?
It is. So I often find, especially when it comes to horror movies, that I've missed out on. Because again, not my jam. I've had a lot of movies hyped up to me, right? Like, even up in, like, last week when I was at work, I had coworkers being like, oh my god, you're gonna fucking love Midsommar. It is insane. Like, so many crazy shit happens. Blah, 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 blah. Like, the same thing happened with The Sixth Sense. The same thing has happened with a lot of movies where people hype them up so much that I'm sitting there watching and I'm going, oh, is this it? Okay. And I was kind of feeling that watching this movie for the first time. And we did watch this movie in pieces because, life and parenting got in the way, and that's perfectly all right.
We really don't want our kids walking in on this movie.
No, this is not a movie that you want your kids, and our kids are so good at, like, when we tell them that this is not a movie that they should be watching, they somehow always end up in the living room watching it with us. Yeah. Our son is particularly good at that, at sneaking out, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh god, Jack's been here. So it's funny that way. But yeah, the first half of it I really wasn't enjoying. I was kind of bored by. Like, it is a lot of setup. And yes, I knew what happened in it. The first half of this movie for me was just like, every one of these people sucks. Like, I even wrote down the headline of the Am I the Asshole the Reddit thread for this movie, which was, I crashed my boyfriend, AITA, I crashed my boyfriend's trip to Sweden, and everyone sucks here. Danny is she's not a bad person, but she's not a great person, but she's going through a horrendous personal trauma with the murder-suicide of her sister and parents, which is such a brutal way to, like, start this fucking movie. Like, oh my god, the agony. And then, but, like, in the midst of it, like, her boyfriend sucks. His friends suck. My god, Will Poulter sucks so goddamn much in this movie.
His character is
and
the
I am
worst.
angry that I didn't get to see him be killed. I wanted to see him die.
Yeah, they
In fact,
definitely
that's something else
kill him
that I
off
wrote
screen.
down, which was, it's enjoyable to watch these shitty people die. I wanted to see Will Poulter get it, because what a piece of shit that guy was. He had no respect for the traditions, or the ceremony, or the culture, or the people, or anything that was going on there.
Yeah, zero respect for any of it.
Yeah, like, just so many of my notes are just like, these people suck. And, like, why didn't he just dump her? Like, he should have just dumped her and let her just be sad. I don't know. But then when we started it again, and, like, stuff started to ramp up, right? The people start disappearing. Danny's getting kind of more and more indoctrinated into the commune. I enjoyed it more once she began to, like, not reclaim her power, because I don't think that we really see Danny reclaim her power until the end of it. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the second half more than I enjoyed the first. Because, yeah, I was kind of bored. And that's why I'm like, I want to see this movie again. Because now that I know, right, like, really know what happens, I've seen it and everything, I kind of want to sit down, no distractions, maybe on a day that, you know, the kids are at school and you and I are just at home.
Or you come watch the director's cut with me in the theater.
Maybe.
Or we can watch the director's cut at home.
Yeah. I enjoyed the film more than I thought I was going to. I was horrified by some things, and I definitely, like, turned my eyes and covered my ears at a couple parts because, like, I didn't want to hear the sounds of bodies breaking on rocks. And as horrifying as it was seeing that man get his face bashed in with that mallet, it actually got really funny because it was clearly just a mask.
Yeah.
And so it became sort of, like, cheesy fun in some scenes. It's a beautifully shot film. The cinematography is just stunning. And, like, I love the costumes. The acting was really good. You know, the boyfriend, such a piece of shit. When they started to sew him into the bear costume, I started laughing.
It was
so hard.
I wrote that down towards the end of my notes. I said, you know, I'll just go there now. I pretty much said Maggie had a good laugh when Christian was put into the bear.
Yeah. Well, it's also always fun to see a Christian killed by a pagan for once.
Absolutely, right?
I don't know. I'm kind of half and half on this film. I think I was so nervous going into it that when it finally hit, I was like, oh, this is it? Like, this is all? So I think that hype can be a huge issue when it comes to watching movies, especially for me. And you hyping up this movie over the years and everyone else just talking about how insane it was made me just sit back and go, well, okay. And then in the latter half, I started to see it, you know.
You definitely, watching it second, third, fourth, 10th time, you definitely catch more things or see more things. So a lot of times, like, even during this movie, this is the first time I've actually gotten to, you know, I don't write down notes for movies unless it's the podcast.
Yeah.
And so now this is the first time I've written down things. And then you start to, because you're looking at it from sometimes a more critical point of view, but then sometimes it's just like, oh, I didn't notice that before. Oh, that ties in later. And, like, even the very first opening shot of the whole film is this big tapestry that's showing the entire story of the movie beat by beat. You can go back and look at each part of that tapestry and be like, that's when they arrive into the village. That
tapestry is in your director's cut book.
Yes.
Because it's filled with artwork from the movie. So I've seen it. Like, I knew the beat for beat of this film. And I was just kind of like, it was like, I wish I hadn't. I regret that I read the Wikipedia plot for Saltburn before I saw it. Because I honestly never thought I'd see it. But, like, people kept talking about how crazy Saltburn was, and I was like, well, I gotta know, because I'm never gonna see this movie, because I'm probably never gonna get the chance, so I'm gonna check it out. And so it blew up, right? After I did that, this movie blew up, and all of a sudden it's available streaming, and we watched it, and I was bored. Because I was like, I was waiting for the crazy shit to happen in the quieter moments, right? And so that's all that movie was for me the first time I watched it. In subsequent viewings, and then in watching YouTubers watch it, you know. And, like, I got more into it, and then I became... For me, that movie isn't about, like, the bathtub scene or the grave fucking scene. It's about the scenes with parents.
There's so many things more to that movie.
There's so much more to that movie than just, like, the insane shit.
Yeah.
Which is why I kind of want to watch Midsommar again, because... Like, I was just waiting for the crazy shit to happen, that I wasn't paying full... Not that I wasn't paying full attention, but I wasn't as engulfed into the rest of the film.
There's a lot of layers to this movie.
So I'm shocked that I'm saying this, right? Like, obviously, with Get Out, I was like, I don't like horror movies, but it was a beautifully done film. Like, I don't plan on watching Get Out again. I'll watch Midsommar again. I'm terrified to go into Hereditary because it is more of a proper scary film. You know, I don't want to see a child get beheaded. I don't want to see a woman walking on the walls. I don't want to hear that you would talk about. I'm sorry, and not.
Yeah,
but
there's a difference.
But
which, oh my god, Midsommar or Hereditary in theaters with that, in the IMAX sound, because there's multiple moments where that sound is behind you.
Yeah,
there were a few moments I thought for sure people in the audience were just being assholes because they've already seen it, and so they start making that noise. And then I realized the people on screen are reacting to that sound. I'm like, oh shit, no, that's just great sound design.
Yeah.
So,
but so yeah, I enjoyed this film for what it was, and I do want to watch it again. But I think that the hype hurt it for me for the first viewing. Now, I also firmly believe that if there is a movie that you like, it goes two ways, right? Like, sometimes you're so. Like, the wait for a movie and the anticipation to see a film is so much that when you finally sit down and watch it, you can feel let down by it. I've got a really good friend who was obsessed with The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. Loved those books, the whole one. And when that movie came out, she had been talking for a year prior how excited she was to see that movie. And, you know, she was just waiting. And when it finally came out, she felt let down by it. Right, because it wasn't exactly how she imagined it in her head, or it was, they cut out this scene, or they did that, or whatever, right? Like, for being obsessed with that story as much as she was, she saw this movie and went, I don't know if I liked it. And I said to her, go see it again. And she went, well, but I've already seen it once. I'm like, yes, now go see it again. Watch it another time and tell me how you feel. And, like, I took her to the movies, and we watched it again. And when we left the theater, she was like, I liked it a whole lot more. Because...
you go in with certain
expectations, certain...
Especially a book turned into a movie.
Like,
or
I
people
felt that way
hyping
after seeing The Two Towers for the first time. I walked out and was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. And then I saw it a second time, because of course I was going to. And I was like, oh, this movie fucking rocks. Like, sometimes you need to see a film before you can see a film. You need to know the beats. You need to know the moments. So that you can look for other things and you can really immerse yourself. You're not too worried about...
You're so distracted by your thoughts going into it.
And what's going to happen
all you're
next.
Focusing on. Yeah, and what's going to happen next.
Whereas, you know, like
anticipation.
We just saw Furiosa. I didn't thoroughly enjoy it. But as I think about it, the more I think about it, the more I realize that Chris Hemsworth was a fucking god in that movie. Like, oh my god, he was amazing. And maybe if I saw that movie again, I might enjoy it more, because I could really just sit back and be more immersed into it. But also, I'm not a huge fan of the Mad Max movies.
Especially compared to Fury Road. Fury Road was such an action-packed film.
And Fury Road was another film, though.
Furiosa is not as much action. It's a little slower.
Some of those set pieces are incredible.
Set pieces are still really cool. The stunt work is still really good. Like, it's still, to me, it's still a good movie.
Fury Road is another film that people are like, oh my god, it's so feminist and so amazing, and you've got to see it, you're going to love it, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, alright, fine. Like, but also that movie was clouded by what I had already previously known about how Charlize Theron was treated on that set, the horrible way that Tom Hardy treated her, I knew all about that well before seeing this movie, so that's kind of all I could think about. But
see, I think the thing that's ruining these movies for you is you looking them up before you watch them.
Well, but it's not just, it's just knowing things, right? I'm a pop culturist. I know things. I absorb things. I read articles. And you know things? Yes. And
no, you drink and you know things.
I do that too. So, like, I don't know, whatever. The long and short of it is that I enjoyed this film for the most part, and I would, like, to see it again.
No, and like I said, I can't remember how many times I've seen it. I've seen the director's cut once. I've seen the theatrical cut multiple times, and this was just another addition to that. I'm still seeing things that I'm not really catching the first time, like how distant Christian and Danny are in their relationship from each other.
Oh my God, they
they
just need to break up.
Yeah, they do. But Danny is so afraid of losing him, and he likes having her around.
Well, I think he doesn't want to cause further hurt. Like he
doesn't. Like
if he had broken up with her before she found out about her family, like he wasn't nice to her when she was like, my sister's doing weird shit again, and I don't know what, and I don't know why. He's like, she's doing it because you respond, right? You're giving her the attention. Like, he's not a nice person.
He is not. And one way you see this first is, obviously there's a conversation that him and his friends are having at a bar, and he's just, her calling him is an annoyance to him, because he knows there's a history of her sister who is bipolar, who is going through shit and is causing drama in both their lives, because if it affects Danny, it affects Christian.
Yeah.
And Christian's getting tired of it, and it's enough that he's told his friends about it, and his friends know that when she calls, what it's usually about, and so they know they're annoyed by her phone calls, and
it's a toxic relationship.
It is a toxic relationship, and once Danny finds out what has happened to her parents and her sister, she calls him for comfort.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a traumatic experience, and she needs comfort from her boyfriend, which makes total sense. If you love your partner in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship,
or just your partner in general,
your partner in general,
you go through something terrible.
Just if you have a partner, if you have a traumatic thing, especially with your murder-suicide with your parents and sister, it is something that a boyfriend should be there for. And the first big clue that he does not want any part of this is how slow he walks to the apartment. Yeah. There's a scene where it just shows, because he's nervous about what this means for the rest of his night. Yeah. He's got to sit through her, and they let her show him holding her while she bawls her eyes out.
Yeah, and he's just dead-faced.
Yeah,
he does not want to be there.
I don't want to be here.
He should have broken up with her a week before, like he had wanted to, but was too afraid to do.
He was too afraid to do it. And she's too afraid to lose him.
Somebody posted on Twitter, Goldilocks and the Three Bears adaptation with Cocaine Bear, the bear from Annihilation, and Christian from Midsommar.
Jeez.
Cocaine Bear is definitely the mom. Mama Bear. Yeah.
Wait, who's Goldilocks?
Oh, Goldilocks can be whoever the fuck she wants to be. It's just the three bears or those three bears.
God, that bear from Annihilation is
horrifying.
Insane.
Yeah.
One thing that Christian does a lot is he tries to make himself look supportive to Danny, but at the same time he plays the victim super hard. Like, anytime she tries to talk to him, he immediately puts up his defenses and plays like he's the victim in the relationship. The first time we really see this is when Danny first finds out that there's been a plan for them to go to Sweden. Like they're going. The tickets have been bought. The last time she heard about the conversation about Sweden was like, I feel like I'd really like to go to Sweden. But that was the end of the conversation. Yeah. Then all of a sudden, him and his friends have tickets to go.
Yeah, like it's happening.
It's happening, and she has no idea that it's that far in the planning that they're definitely going. And so one way of showing the distance in this relationship is they go back to their apartment, and she is standing by the front door. The camera's on her, and you see him in the reflection. Or no, is it backwards?
The use of reflection is really beautiful.
They use reflections a lot so that's one way of showing distance, is just showing one character in the foreground and the person in the background is being reflected through a mirror. And then same thing with his friends are being distant too, because when when she expresses interest in also going to Sweden, the way Christian tells his friends she's interested in going, but she's not going.
She
Like,
wants to go, but she's not gonna go.
Sorry, what? And nobody will just come out and say, no,
Dude,
don't come,
yeah.
or come. Like, nobody wants to actually like say it. And once again, when she enters the apartment, the friends are in the foreground on the couch, and she's reflected in the mirror, saying her piece, which I find really fun storytelling, great cinematography of putting people in mirrors like that, just to show the distance that they're feeling from each other. One thing that you may have fallen into with kind of being bored was just how long it's taking to just get to it.
Yeah.
I think...
I mean, it's a long movie.
It is a long movie, yeah. 2.5 hours and almost 3 with the director's cut. And I think the movie does a good job in its opening scenes, building up not only just showing you the relationship, this bad relationship between Danny and Christian, and Danny and his friends, but it's also just building up the tension that we're going to really run into a lot of craziness once we're actually in this Swedish community.
Yeah.
I think just because it gets really tense with the music and what they're doing, who they are, as these are students that are wanting to, or at least Josh wants to do a thesis.
Well, they're
on
anthropologists.
They are, yes.
Yeah.
They're going they're in college. Josh has a thesis that he's been talking about working on. The thesis subject is specifically Midsommar, not the community, which comes up later, but specifically he wants to do a thesis on Midsommar. So he's going to Sweden, he's going to Germany, he's got plans to go all over Europe and
study everything.
Because he's an anthropologist, so of course he's got to go more in one place. So finally, and this movie also has great transitions. One of the best ones was her needing to go to the bathroom, and all of a sudden they're on the plane, and she's in the...
Oh, that's such a good transition.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Really well
she's
done.
having a panic attack, and
Right.
she excuses herself to the bathroom, and then immediately she's in the airplane. Yeah, this movie is incredibly well put together. It's not... Again, like, none of the movies on this list are bad films, whether... We like Whiplash was so fucking bad. Oh God, but people loved it. Here's the thing: is they're not films that people hate. They're not films that people shit on.
Yes, like I said, every time I read these Rotten Tomatoes scores, they're always high, especially with critics.
Because this is, these are renowned films.
These are the most popular films.
So of course, saying that Midsommar is a great film is an understatement. Because of course it is. It's on this list, but like. There is so much... The transitions were really clever. Florence Pugh does such a great fucking job in this movie. Mm-hmm. Like, it's so guttural and so visceral. Her acting, her grief, her mourning, like... She is phenomenal.
I always run into people on the internet, because people would be assholes on the internet, but they always make fun of Florence Pugh and how much crying and frowning she does in this movie. Mm-hmm. She does frown a lot in like all the movies that she does, but...
Yeah, but this is not a happy character.
This is not a happy character. No, she's going through what is possibly the most traumatic experience of her life, losing her sister and parents, and especially the way it happened. So of course she's not going to be all bubbly and happy and cheery. And,
no.
And she plays the sad character
that grief
very well.
Yeah.
And when she has panic attacks, she plays that very well.
Mm-hmm.
Even like once she gets, and you see how bad the relationship is between her and Christian, even when they first enter the kind of the border of this commune, which is they're essentially leaving their cars behind, and they got to walk the rest of the way. But before they do, they're going to take some mushrooms.
Yeah. And
she's just like, she's just been through this really traumatic thing.
Yeah.
She's in a different country. She's got obviously jet lag, and all of a sudden everybody wants to just start taking drugs immediately. And she's like, wait, I gotta like get my head in order. I mean, I've never taken mushrooms, but the one thing that everybody talks about before you do is you don't want a bad trip. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that leads to bad trips is high anxiety. And just...
Which is why I've also never taken mushrooms, and I'm terrified to do it.
I will never do it because I don't like my brain being that out of control.
Yeah.
I like being...
My brain's out of control enough as it is.
Alcohol is one thing because it kind of deadens your senses, but I know, I don't need that in my life. No, thank you. But she's essentially guilted into taking drugs because everybody's like, Christian and his friends are there to have fun.
Yeah.
And the first thing they want to do is take mushrooms, and they want to take the trip together. And Christian is trying to look like he's being supportive by not taking them with his friends, but then his friends are disappointed that he won't have the trip the same time they will. Mm-hmm. So he's just like, all right, well, I'll just stay over here with Danny. And then that makes Danny feel guilty about not letting Christian have his fun. So she immediately is just like, she's guilted into doing it by being like, well, I don't want I don't want Christian to be upset at me for not letting him take drugs with his friends. So, all right,
so we'll just do it.
I'll just do it, and we'll all do it together. And the one thing that people have told me, since I haven't taken mushrooms, the one thing that a lot of people I have talked to who have taken mushrooms say about this movie is it's a very close representation of what being on mushrooms is like.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I kind of want to see flowers breathing and know what the trees are thinking.
And the hills in the background being all wavy and looking at your hand and it's turning into grass. Mm-hmm. Like, that's maybe a little too much for me, but... So,
while we've been talking, I've been looking up, because I know that there's a scene, and jumping forward well into it, but I know that I always knew, or somebody had told me, or had seen something somewhere, blah, 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 that Danny's sister is represented in the trees in the background of a shot.
Yes.
And
it looks like a face.
Wanted to know what it looked like.
I didn't know if it was Danny's face or her sister's face.
It's her sister's face, because you can see the tube running into it from from the car exhaust.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's not the picture I was thinking of. There's another one where you see a person...
Yeah, like she's in the behind her in a mirror at one point.
That is, I saw that part.
This also happens right after when she's crowned the May Queen and all the people are crowding around her. She sees her mom and her dad and her sister in the crowd. But I wanted to see this particular image.
That is quite a striking image.
It is quite a striking image. It is, I didn't see it at the time when we were watching the film.
Not that.
And you've seen this movie enough, and you've never clocked that.
I've never clocked that
because you're watching
image. I'm watching the people.
Yeah, you're watching
in
the people
foreground.
and not looking in the trees.
I mean, there's a lot of things happening in the trees. Like I said, the hills are constantly waving, like just rippling. Flowers are opening and closing. Oh, obviously after her trip, both literally and then after she takes drugs, she slept in the grass for 6 hours.
That bitch would have been covered in bug bites.
Which we were talking about bug bites, and even Will Poulter's character, Mark, was talking about how many bugs he was seeing in the grass as he's walking. But then they immediately talk about ticks. Ugh. and how Sweden has a big tick problem, and I'm like, I think she would have had more if you lay in grass like that long, how tall that grass is. Not only ticks, but I'm thinking about mosquitoes, bees, ants. Just nothing I want to lay in grass for 6 hours for.
Mm-mm. No, I barely like sitting in grass for 10 minutes. It's so itchy.
It's so itchy.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you noticed, but the music changes very differently from the way it was. And then once they enter the community, the music changes into something... I did enjoy
that scene when they're walking through that rounded, sunlit, sun-embodied gate. I thought that was a very clever scene because they were literally leaving the real world behind and entering into this sort of insane new world.
Yeah, it becomes much more eerie and makes you just feel a little bit uncomfortable with the music change. A fun way of making it so the whole movie's not in Swedish. The main woman who wears the red headdress,
the main elder.
Elder, who seems to be the leader in a way, or at least one of the, like you said, elders of the community. She first starts speaking in Swedish, and then she there's a moment where she's like, "Oh, we have guests. I'll we'll speak in English," and then the rest of the movie is mostly in English, except for some certain parts during these like traditions and the communities. There's a lot of rituals being done, and so a lot of Swedish is being spoken during those scenes. But for the majority of everybody speaks English. But it was a fun. I love fun transitional ways where non-English speaking characters will just flow into English. I think one of my favorite parts that was done in. There's a couple. Mm-hmm. One was Hunt for Red October, and the other one was The 13th Warrior.
13th Warrior is a great movie.
Hunt for Red October does a fun way where everybody's speaking Russian, and then it zooms in on people's lips, and the Russian slowly turns into English, and then everybody on the Russian sub, for the most part, speaks English from that moment on. And then 13th Warrior, everybody is... I don't remember what language they're speaking at the beginning. It's a form of some sort of Nordic language. I'm not sure exactly which one, but they were speaking it for the majority of the beginning of the movie, and then during the course of them, this group of Nordic warriors traveling to go save their village. But there's this fun moment where Antonio Banderas' character is sitting with these men at the campfire, and he's just listening to them talk, and just through the listening, he's able to figure out how to speak the language and understand the language. He says I forget what it was, but they transitioned from their language to English and to the rest. So I really like creative ways that movies choose to help out an English-speaking audience, so we don't have to read subtitles the whole time, even though I really do like subtitled movies. Oh yeah, when Danny makes so many excuses for Christian.
So many? Like, he forgot my birthday, but it's my fault.
That was the main thing. I forgot to remind him.
Oh.
I forgot to remind him of my birthday, and he also forgets right before that. He admits that he forgets when they started dating.
Yeah, like he doesn't remember how long they've been together.
Yeah,
and she's like, "Yeah, it was 4 years a couple weeks ago."
Yeah, and he was like 3 years or something.
Yeah.
Whatever he said.
No,
he completely forgets her birthday, but then Pelly remembers just through conversations that he said, just for listening to her, he remembers and draws this really nice sketch of her.
Pelly really seems like I kind of always got the vibe that she would end up with him, like he was in love with her. I love the moment that he kisses her after she becomes the May Queen. He's got that incredible dialogue where he's like, "Why are you with Christian? Like, do you feel held by him? Does he feel like home to you?" Those are such like deep questions to ask of your friend's girlfriend, right? I kind of wonder how much Pelly was really friends with these people, or if he was just trying to look for sacrifices. Because, he was sent out from the village to find people to bring back in, right? To bring in new blood and or sacrifices for this festival that they were doing. So it makes me wonder how much he actually liked these people, because he doesn't seem to like Christian at all. He doesn't seem to. He's definitely not too torn up about Josh and Mark disappearing. And then I don't know if you noticed, but the other at the end, the two guys from the village that sacrificed themselves to the offering were the two other people that brought in outsiders.
Yeah, I knew.
Yeah,
I knew one of them was the guy who brought in.
Connie and Simon.
Yeah, he was the one. I knew that. I didn't know about the other guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he might have been. But anyways, like Pelly is a really interesting character because he's kind and he is considerate and he wants Danny to be welcomed. He wants Danny to be a part of it.
Well, it's the scene where he just tells that his parents died in a fire, and
talks about how like the
community
raised him.
Yeah, the community raised him, but they also comforted him through a traumatic experience. And Danny has nobody. Yeah. Nobody there to comfort, because Christian's doing a shit job of it.
Yeah, and his friends don't care.
So Christian's way of making up for forgetting her birthday is, I don't know where he got the cake or candle from. I don't think he had any of this planned. He probably got it from somebody in the community. He was probably like, "Hey,
well, yeah, the piece of cake
Belly.
was like a little bit of like bunt cake or something.
Yeah, something that he had." Like, "Oh, I'll put this aside," but the visual that was happening during that scene was
of
really
him trying to light the candle and failing.
well. But
In the background.
in the background,
Yeah.
because as this relationship is happening in the foreground of this bad relationship that's happening in the foreground. In the background, right behind them, you have a community of women who are taking care of a baby
they're
together.
kind of huddled around a baby.
They're huddled around a baby. They're swaying back and forth, trying to put the baby to sleep. It's the only moment you ever see a baby, even though
You hear it.
You hear it throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
Which is also eerie.
Yeah.
Because it's every time they're in the little lodge that they sleep in at night, there's just a baby who's constantly screaming. But the visual of a community of women being comforting a child.
I kind of took that too a little bit. And I don't know how I would prove this. Don't you have the script to this movie?
I do.
Fucking of course you do. But I kind of took it because this takes place before the old people commit suicide, right?
Yes.
So I kind of wondered if that wasn't them saying goodbye. Like, if it wasn't the old lady, like, holding the baby and all of them standing around.
It was all young women.
No, because I swear there was an old woman in that scene, too. I could be wrong. I don't know. But I did appreciate the optics of it. You're right. Like, here's this, like, very awkward interaction between Danny and Christian, and he's desperately trying to light the candle, and it's not working, and she's kind of she's embarrassed and a little fed up, and yeah, so all this is happening while you're right. In the background, there's just, and the way that it's framed too, like the framing of this movie, so beautifully directed. Yeah, all of them like standing there just swaying together. I did remember that scene, and I really enjoyed it.
But the whole thing about this community is that they support each other. It's a big family. They talk about how they...
Well, I mean, all the screaming and the moaning and they all take place, like...
They all share in...
They share in life.
They share in sorrow. They share in happiness. When Danny's having a panic attack later in the movie because of what she sees Christian doing, cheating on her, essentially. Not essentially. He is cheating on her. And she starts having a panic attack and runs off by herself to the lodge. Or actually, no, she falls to her knees outside. And the community of women come and scoop her up and take her to the lodge and let her have her panic attack.
Yeah.
But then also share in it. They start moaning with her moans. They actually slow her down. Like she's really hyperventilating, and
they help her breathe.
Yeah, they breathe with her.
Yeah, they begin to mimic.
They get through the process of it with her, share in her grief and her anxiety, and help her
and her emotions
and get through it. And because she doesn't have anybody, she lost her
so
parents and her
alone.
sister, so she has no family. So the only person, that's another reason I think she's held on to Christian so long. It's the only person in her life that we know of that's in her life. In any way. Yeah. He does a piss poor job of it, but the community that's there helps each other and her and treats her like family.
I found the costumes in this movie very interesting too. Obviously, like the whole commune is all in white, or they're in white with colored accents and whatnot. But all the outsiders are in dark clothing. Like especially towards the end, it's very visual when after Danny has been like a part of the commune, right? After she's become the May Queen and everything, she's in the white dresses, she's in the outfits with them, and Christian is always in very dark clothing, so he stands out so much. And I found that very interesting too, because like Danny's colors are dark, but they kind of lighten throughout the movie, and then obviously by the end she's one of them, and I mean she's also wrapped up in flowers at the end of the movie, but still it's I just found the costumes very interesting, and very beautiful too. The costume design is stunning.
Costume design, set design.
Like, who doesn't want that flower dress? Like, I want it.
The flower dress, the temple, the yellow temple in the midst of all this green is really striking and stands out. Which one of the things that A24 sells in their shop is incense burner that's in the shape of the yellow temple.
We should get that.
I would love it.
Yeah.
I like how they view certain segments of your life as the changing of the season. So for spring, because it's the newborn, new trees and flowers, new beginnings. So that's from your birth to 18 is spring. 18 to 36 are your summer years.
Yeah.
And it's not even your working years yet.
You're kind of expected to go out and
educate yourself. It's a lot of learning. It's also, this is Midsommar, and so a lot of the people portrayed in this are between the ages of 18 and 36.
Yeah.
Even the outsiders. Fall is your work life between the ages of 33 and 54, which, God, if I could, 18 years of work and that's it, and you're done.
Yeah, but we'd be in the midst of it right now. We'd be in the work phase.
That's fun. Yeah, but I wouldn't have started working until I was 33.
Yeah, that's true. Not at 18.
And then your winter years, your retirement years, 18 years of retirement, 54 to 72.
Before throwing yourself off a cliff?
Before throwing yourself off of a cliff. To avoid your family even more grief, I guess, or having to take care of you in old age.
Yeah, and also like the resources to, less mouth to feed or whatever. I don't know. Do you think that they do that? Like everybody does that at 72?
It seems like that. However, I was noticing this rewatch towards the end of the movie, there were a lot of old men in the. A lot of elders were old, and there was just a lot of older men standing around that looked a lot like they were way over 72. And I know people age differently.
Yeah.
My dad is 72 right now, and
let's throw him off a
he
cliff.
looks time to go, Dad. But he looks nothing like these men they look so old.
Yeah.
So I don't know what their true ages were.
Well, maybe they're in their just late 60s, and also you live outside all your life. You work hard. You tend to the farms. You tend to the animals. It's a good life, I've told you on many occasions that I would love to have a farm and just work on it. Just insane for me because I wouldn't, but I would love it. But, it's not the easiest work, so it ages you a bit more.
We talked about this a little bit, how disrespectful a lot of these guys are of the culture. Danny is the only person who really embraces the culture, whereas all the other men, the outsiders.
Yeah.
Connie you don't ever see her really interact. It's more of, she's with Simon, so.
Yeah, and she freaks out hardcore.
She does.
When the elders throw themselves off the cliff.
She does. So does, Simon especially. He just starts cussing at them and telling them how crazy and insane they are.
Yeah.
But Danny's everybody is very disrespectful of them as a people and their culture. Mark pees on their sacred ancestral tree.
He's such
and
a
has
dick.
no. It was like, I just needed to pee.
Yeah, and he has no remorse over it either.
No remorse. He's just like, what? It's just a dead tree. I didn't know.
Well, are they gonna kill me because of that? Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And the one guy who first got upset at him and yelled at him for peeing on it, and then stares at him during that whole meal.
Yeah.
Later on, you see when Josh is taking pictures of the sacred books. A man wearing Mark's face knocks him out, and you never see who that man is. But since I have the script to the movie, it does say that it was the man who was staring him down at dinner is the man who was wearing his face later and knocked Josh out.
So why did the elders hide the book? Right, because the sacred text, the one that was...
I think it was sacred, and they didn't want photographs taken of it.
Well, no, I know that.
Everything that they did there was sacred.
He took the photographs.
Yeah.
And then the next day they're like, the book's missing, and so is Josh. Did they set that up to try to frame Josh? Or why didn't they just, like, did they say that the book was hiding, which was their way of saying that, like...
Why Josh is gone,
Why Josh
maybe?
is gone,
I think
he took the book and ran?
They said it's gone so that they have a reason why Josh is all of a sudden missing.
Okay.
And Christian and Danny just assume that Josh took off with one of their books.
Yeah.
Just like Simon and Connie are mysteriously missing as well. Yeah, people start just disappearing, and Danny's legitimately worried about what's happening to the people that she was with. Like, why aren't they here anymore? Whereas Christian's just like, oh, well,
yeah,
they're gone.
Oh, and also Christian, like, stepping in, knowing full well that his friend Josh, that he's been friends with for however long.
But long enough to go on a trip with him like this with.
He knows that Josh is writing his thesis on Midsommar festivals and practices and rituals. And then he out of nowhere is like, oh, I'm going to do it too.
Well,
like, that's
his excuse
such a dick
His
move.
excuse is, I'm not writing the thesis about Midsommar.
Yeah.
I'm going to write my thesis on this community
on
only.
these people.
And
but it's kind of the same thing.
It
though.
is kind of the
Such
same
a
thing.
dick
And
move.
Josh calls him out on it.
Yeah.
And Christian's like, whatever, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So live with it. And then Josh mysteriously disappears.
I really do. I know I said this earlier, but I really wish we could have seen these people die. Like, I would have loved to have watched Mark die.
Watch more people actually get it. I mean, yeah, Simon dies off screen, and then you see him horrifically hung from the rafters with his lungs hanging out.
The blood eagle.
Like an eagle, and what
That's
you call
what
it?
it's called, a blood eagle. And it
That's
is
rough.
it is a real thing. It is a real form of torture that is done while a person's alive.
The lungs were still breathing.
Yeah, I kind of took that as like the way that the flowers were breathing and the trees were breathing. When you see the lungs move, in my head, I thought that was kind of like a drug side effect, you know, because the movie makes you feel like you're on drugs, and so that's because there's no way that he could have been. That those lungs would have been breathing
Well, like you
in
said,
terms
it's
of
done while the person's still alive.
Yeah, but you know, and then they die slowly.
Yeah, I mean,
he'd been there for a minute.
He'd probably been there for a
yeah,
minute. But
I found it funny when Christian's having his panic attack after being with the 15-year-old, by the way, which is gross.
Was he really?
Yeah, she's only 15. I think that's the implication, is that she's like just of age. But when he sees somebody's leg, Josh's leg, I think.
Josh's leg
yeah,
sticking
just
out of the
sticking
ground.
out of the garden.
He keeps trying to. He's running naked
Yeah.
Through the property, and he keeps like, I'm gonna go this direction, and then something's happening in that room. So he's like, oh, okay, never mind. I'm gonna go this direction. And then he sees a leg sticking out of the ground. And then he ends up in the chicken coop.
Yeah. One thing that I appreciated is that actor himself, Jack Rayner. Jack Rayner talked about being fully nude in this movie, and he said one of the reasons that he wanted to do it and was okay with being fully nude is because there's long been a discrepancy in nudity in females in horror movies. It's always, it's always the woman who gets naked and has sex that's then brutally murdered while she's naked and or unclothed. And he felt like it was about time that a man should be put in that same situation in a horror film, which I appreciated wholeheartedly.
He was, and they did.
Yeah, damn. It was so fucking funny when they just started sewing him up into that bear costume. Like, that shit was hysterical to me. I loved, too, how the elder was, like, teaching the boys, like, where to cut into the bear and to avoid the intestines and stuff, and he's just sitting in the corner, paralyzed. God, he deserved it. Like, maybe he didn't deserve it. Like, he didn't deserve to die for being a shitty boyfriend, but it was fun to watch. It wasn't like he beat her or anything. He was just a shitty, emotionally unavailable boyfriend.
I know we kind of glossed over the ritual suicide.
Yeah.
Mark's reaction to sleeping through it and, like, being angry that they let him sleep through it.
Oh, I didn't get to see it?
Yeah. Like, that's the one thing I wanted to see. Like,
that's so fucked up.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I also found it interesting that, like, Josh knew what was going to happen but didn't say anything.
Right.
Like,
it was something that he already knew about because he's an anthropologist, and he they called it by the ritual name, which I don't know what that was, but he knew what it was as soon as they said it, and he's like, "Wait, are you serious? Like an actual one?" And they're like, "Yeah." And he.
Why wouldn't you tell your friends?
Yeah,
especially
he's leaving them in the dark as like a joke, like a dark joke.
And again, why would you like? Pele is very concerned about the fact that Danny has lost her family. He knows that she's suffered this horrendous trauma, and she is in the throes of grief and dealing with it. Why would he let her see that? Like,
Right.
you think that he'd be like,
maybe you should sit this one out. This is pretty dark. This whole community seems like a pretty amazing community to be part of. It's beautiful. The traditions seem really pleasant for the most part. I don't know if this is. I know they have a May Queen every year, and a lot of this is old pagan rituals to bless the harvest. I mean, the Midsommar pagan rituals were a thing, and then the Catholic religion moved in, and it was like, hey, stop celebrating this crazy pagan stuff.
Yeah, but we're going to steal some of these ideas from you because we like it.
They created Easter to enjoy our rituals during this time of year instead of these crazy ones. But everything seems like it could have been a great thing to be part of, except for the ritual suicides.
Yeah.
And even at the end,
you kind of hope you die at 70,
well,
you know?
Because at first you're like...
in your bed.
At first you're like, all right, 72, you're going to live a long, happy life with these people in this country. Your life is going to be what looks like on the outside pretty perfect.
Yeah.
And then at 72, you're gone. Then it was the end when they're like, we have volunteers who are going to burn alive. And burning alive is something that I'm just not
going to
be part of. Also, something else that was not great, and the director's cut really expands more on it, is the inbred incest that goes on to create
the oracle.
The oracles.
Yeah,
so the oracles are created through incest, and the one scene that they didn't really show, you see the current oracle working on a project, working on writing the new sacred text. The sacred text looked like it used to actually have writing in it, which looked important. The current oracle is just drawing paint all over every page, just wiping everything out.
Yeah.
And then the elders say that they take what the oracle writes or creates and interprets it. And so it's really the elders who are controlling everything. Like, they have these oracles, but they interpret what the oracle...
Because I remember one of the elders tells Josh that when he shows him the sacred books.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It just turns like, I have no problem with pagan traditions.
Yeah.
Because it's something that should have just been left alone. And
I mean, it's their own religion.
People, it's their culture. But then this... As soon as you start having oracles and interpretations of sacred texts and stuff, it quickly starts turning into more of a cult.
Yeah, I mean, this is it is. Cult.
It is a cult.
It's as much of a cult as any of them out there. It's just been around longer, I guess. You know, like this has been going on. This particular festival happens every 90 years, they say. So this is one of how many, right?
They every 90 years, but they
have a May Queen every year.
They choose a May Queen every year.
But this particular festival,
type of festival.
So what is like their regular May Day festival like? What is their usual Midsommar?
Couldn't I have been invited to the regular one?
Yeah, like you could have just brought me to the one where you just
one.
Take some mushrooms and dance around a bit and just go home. It had to be the literal sacrificial lamb.
I liked when virgin into a volcano.
I liked when you see the bear for the first time and they're like, "Is that a bear?"
Is that a bear?
And the guy's like, "Don't worry about it.
Don't worry. Don't worry about the bear."
Like, it's just a fucking bear there. The tapestry or the artwork that we see of the love story, right? The woman that wants the man to fall in love with
essentially
her.
how to create a love potion.
Yeah. So she leaves a pube in his food.
Yeah.
And then his lemonade or his drink slightly orange with the idea that there's menstrual blood in it. Oh.
Yeah. Well, that's what the tapestry was showing.
Tapestry showed. So and that was how this young woman was trying to get him, trying to seduce him, but also, that guy did not mean to earn his Red Wings, but he did.
Oh yeah, the special pie. It's all baked into a special pie.
It's a special pie, all right.
A special pie.
Ooh, boy.
So then you find out Christian is used for his essentially his sperm, so that they don't want 100% inbreeding in their community. Mm-hmm. So they bring outsiders in, which I think is what Danny eventually will be used for. But I don't think they're gonna kill her.
No,
they're gonna.
I think that I really think that her and Pele are getting together. He'll snuggle up to her, and they'll eventually form a family or start getting more. She's now a part of this community, so she will eventually get pregnant, give birth, go through all the stuff, and hopefully die in her sleep at 69.
Oh, hopefully. But for her situation, I really feel like she's going to be so much happier in this cult, which is upsetting.
Yeah.
But compared to the way she was treated in real life.
Yeah, I mean, what does she have waiting for her back home?
She has nothing.
She has nothing.
Yeah.
Her family's gone. Her friends and boyfriends are gone.
I'm not promoting cults,
I don't even know if she has any friends outside of them. You see her talking to one at one point, but
yeah, she's on the phone with somebody when she's worried about her sister.
Yeah, but she's so alone.
When it comes to the dancing scene, I feel like they wanted her to be the May Queen. I feel like the way if you watch the dance. Yeah. The way women just bump into each other and fall is very reminds me of the way soccer players fall when they feel like they got fouled. And they wanted her to be the May Queen, so they purposely fell when they got bumped into, or they quit early so that she would win automatically. Mm-hmm. It's something every time I watch it, it looks so planned.
Yeah, but why are they choosing her because she's the new blood?
I think so. I think they want her to be in their community.
Yeah.
I think they accept her.
Yeah, she looks the part.
She looks the part. She's the most likely to, because she respects the culture, and she's so. The women around her are so accepting of her. I think that making her the May Queen, just kind of you're officially part of our tribe now because you were the May Queen. I think she may not have stuck around if she wasn't. It was so disturbing, and Maggie and I kind of shared the thought when, because you didn't really catch on to it right away, when Christian is making love to the girl, and making love. It's not all right, go have sex in this room.
No,
it's very ritualized. Yeah. But when the daughter puts her hand up and this woman grabs her hand and starts singing, and then Christian's face of just there's this woman singing next to me, and then eventually holds his face while he's thrusting, and but it just made me laugh because all of a sudden you're like, wait, is that her mom?
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, that's her mom.
Yeah, and then assuming those were a lot of her family members, I do love. What I loved about that scene is that none of those bodies were perfect. There were women with...
Sure, it's not like they hired a bunch of supermodels.
No, yeah, there's larger women and smaller women and big old biddies and little tiny titties, and it was a whole plethora of sizes.
Plethora?
of female bodies, and each and every one of them was beautiful. When the older woman goes and starts pushing on Christian's butt
from behind
to help him
get there, help him just go.
I kind of thought that she was gonna get a finger up there. Woo! A little...
Get you there a little quicker.
Yeah, a little tickle. And I don't know how that's where I thought it was going, and I was just like, no, okay. It was gross enough as it was. And then, she starts doing the Maud Lebowski yoga, where she pulls her knees to her chest and starts talking, I can feel the baby.
I can feel the baby. So one of the things that I find funny towards the end of this movie is when it's after Mark gets drugged and he can't speak or talk, and they have this whole thing with the head elder, and Danny's in her big May Queen
costume,
dress, and essentially they're like, okay, we have our volunteers who are going to be burned alive, yay, but we need one more, and so they do like the lottery thing with the ball, and it pops down, and Honorable Toolborn is chosen. And so she has to choose between this very tall, handsome, like
striking,
and his name is Honorable, like he has honorable in his name, Honorable Toodleborn, or Christian. Yeah, like these are your choices. Who are you going to choose?
And did she know that they're going to die?
I don't think she knew that he was going to be burned alive in the moment.
Did she ever see him in the bear costume?
I'd imagine so, because she saw it all being set up before they lit fire to it. So they may have.
They had to get him in there somewhere.
Because the next scene, once she's supposed to choose, but they don't actually show her choosing what her choice is. But the next scene is a bear being gutted and him being sewn into it.
Yeah, Christian sitting in the corner.
And they start filling the temple with bodies. So just the thought of her like, who should I choose?
Honorable?
Decisions.
Or my douchey
boyfriend who's been such a douche and just cheated on me.
Yeah.
Because there was always a point where he could have said no. He could have been like, no, I'm with Danny. I'm not going to cheat on her. They didn't force him to go in there.
But they did drug him.
They drugged him, but he still could make choices.
I don't know if he could have said no.
The lemonade thing or the tea while she was doing her dance, he could have been more. He could have put his foot down and been like, "No, I'm not drinking." Or when they're like, come, let's do, come to the mating.
Yeah,
lodge.
I mean, he could have even, because the elder woman, the one in charge, even tells him like, "You've been chosen to mate with this person." He could have been like, no,
thank you.
Yeah, but he too was 1 foot out of the relationship and ready to.
He was ready to move on, and he wanted to write this thesis that he really didn't seem very.
And he wanted to fuck other people, and boy did he. My favorite scene with Christian in it is where he's on the drugs and he like asks the dude at the table next to him like, "What's going on?" And the guy claps in his face, and all of a sudden Christian's just like, "Why would you do that?" Like just. I found that very funny. Yeah. He's just like, oh.
That big ripple effect.
Yeah, the ripple effect that comes off of it. It's very funny. What do you think her smile at the end symbolizes?
I was just going through my notes to see what I haven't gotten to yet. Right before that, they set fire to the temple. The 2 guys were still living in there, other than Christian. I feel bad for. They were given a drug that was supposed to let them not be afraid of being burned alive.
Feel no pain and feel no fear.
Yeah, and then the one guy notices he's on fire and just starts freaking out. But because he starts yelling and screaming because of the being burned,
so does
the rest
town.
of the community starts doing the same thing, sharing in that pain.
Yeah.
Maybe drowning it out so that people can't hear it. But I felt...
it kind of felt like it was more they were sharing in it.
The first time I watched it, I think I remember being like, are they trying to drown out the screams? But because of how much they share with each other, pain, happiness, everything, I do feel like they were sympathizing with the people who had volunteered their bodies to this ritual. And she too, Danny, also starts walking around with that huge dress, screaming, wailing. But then, there's that slow transition where it shows the temple collapsing on itself, and then it shows her face comes into view. And, this whole movie, this entire movie, Danny has been treated poorly. Her family died, so of course she's sad, and she's been going through panic attacks, some really terrible things, and she's not a happy person during the entire film.
Yeah, I mean there are moments where she laughs.
Sure, but laughing with friends when you're at a bar trying to take your mind off of the death of your family,
or laughing at the commune because somebody is doing something funny. There are moments of her smiling.
There's moments of she's trying to make herself.
But But that smile at the end
That
is
is
definitely...
the first genuine
Yeah.
smile I think Danny ever has. The first moment of actual happiness is the moment she gets to see her boyfriend burned alive.
Well, and it's also, I mean...
And now she's part of this community that I think she had a really big connection with.
You know, because I'm looking at a picture of it right now, the smile mirrors the smile of the sun, right?
I'm sorry, the sun?
Yeah, and from the tapestry.
I see a
But,
picture of that.
like, it's also, you know, she's literally, her past is being burned up in that temple, too. Like, the things that weighed her down, her boyfriend, her boyfriend's friends, that were weighing her down. Like, she finds freedom in that moment.
Yeah.
I think so, too, in a way.
Like I said, yeah, it was the first genuine moment I think she's had where she's truly happy.
Or at peace, or,
At peace.
you know, whatever it
Any
is.
of it, yeah. Well, Maggie,
Yes.
I have to know. Because I give this movie 5 out of 5.
Really?
It's a perfect film for me.
Okay, well, I respect that.
It's just, I think maybe the first time I saw it, I would have given it maybe a 4. Every time I see it, I like it more. I see more things I like. Even you showing me the picture of the sister with the hose in her mouth, visualized in the trees in the background. I was just like, what the fuck? I didn't even see that.
Yeah.
So I love finding out new things, reading the script, which is such a nerdy
Yeah, I know, it's so
thing to
goddamn
do.
nerdy.
And you get to find so much other things.
I
like
love reading scripts.
the way, because there's a lot of stuff they cut out of the script in
Yeah.
the final product, even cut out of the director's cut.
Yeah.
That, like, obviously changes were made during the filming. That happens all the time where the script doesn't match up. It's not like you can't, when you read a script, it's never,
Yeah,
it
no,
doesn't mirror
it's
the
not,
film.
yeah.
Even a director's cut doesn't mirror the film or script. But yeah, it's become one of my favorite movies. I don't know what that says about me, but you know, I really like it. What
respect
would
it.
you give it?
Well, I can't give it 4 stars because while I enjoyed it at the end, I didn't enjoy it at the beginning because I was kind of bored by it. Maybe that would change if I rewatched it a couple of times.
I want to show you the director's cut, and maybe it doesn't have to be anytime soon.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be at IMAX, but because I have it on Blu-ray,
Yeah.
one of these days,
I'd rather like curl up on the couch and watch it with you than sit in a theater and watch it with you.
and we could pause it at any time,
Yeah.
take bathroom breaks. No,
Yeah.
it's a much better way to watch. But I would just, we were talking earlier,
Yeah.
like with Oppenheimer, about when you watch a film for the second time, you
Yeah.
give it another chance, especially
Yeah.
once your whatever hype had been given to you has died off, and you can just rewatch it for the
and I
film
do
that
want
it
to
is.
rewatch it.
Yeah.
But so I'll give it 3.5. I feel like I guess I can't give it a 4 yet, but right now I think I
I know
feel
you're
like,
pretty bored at the beginning.
yeah, a 3.5 is probably the best that we're getting at this
that's-
very moment.
all right, that's
Which is
fine.
fine. Like
Yeah.
I said, I enjoyed this movie more than Get Out. I think it is a better made film. I mean, it's more beautiful. I don't feel the need to compare them and say one's absolutely better than the other. This film
They're so different.
they're so different, but this movie is so bright and it is
Like the
so
subject
beautiful.
matter of both movies is so different.
Yeah. I'm more likely to want to watch this film again.
What'd you give Get Out?
I don't remember.
I want to say it was like a 3.5.
I think it might have also been a 3.5.
Maybe you should give this one a 4.
I'll give it a 4 when I watch the director's cut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm going to put this movie above Get Out in the official Movie Mingle watch
Letterboxd.
list on Letterboxd. So, which you can follow at MovieMinglePod on Letterboxd. But yeah, it's a great film. It's a fine film. It's obviously not my most favorite one I've ever seen, but I will rewatch it. I'm glad that I've seen it, and people can now shut up about, oh my god, you haven't seen it? Which is my least favorite response to any time I tell somebody that, like, oh no, I haven't seen it. I always hate the, oh my god, how have you not seen it? Blah.
One other thought, doesn't really have anything to do with Midsommar, but I wanted to say this before we leave. Like Maggie said, we do have a Letterboxd account.
Mm-hmm.
We have an Instagram account. We have an email. But we also now have a YouTube channel,
Hey!
which these podcasts are going on to in both audio and video form. But the video form is more like it's a video visualization of an audio podcast.
Yeah,
it's
It's not us sitting in our messy living room fighting off our cat.
no.
And you know what? So many people consume their podcasts via YouTube, which I find interesting. And then also, like, so many people have told me, like, oh, it'd be so cool to watch you and Steve record it. And I'm like, it's really not that interesting, you guys. Like,
that might be something we do in the future,
yeah.
and it'll be on Patreon more than likely.
Yeah, the setups that they have these days of, like, you know, people sitting on a couch holding microphones and doing it that way that's a far cry from the setup we've got currently, and we're not that interesting. So, I mean,
Damn.
well, I mean, you know, I wouldn't even know where to set the backdrop in this little apartment. So that's way off. But yeah, you can listen to it on YouTube.
Yeah, and
while you do
especially
your
now
dishes or
because
whatnot.
Google got rid of their podcast platform, so I don't know how many people were listening to us on Google, but now you can listen to us on YouTube, and the YouTube channel is MovieMinglePodcast.
Hey.
You can find it that way.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's very exciting. Way to set that up, Caveman.
so Maggie,
Yes, Caveman.
this might be a weird one, but I've got 2 questions for you.
Hit it.
So would the presence of Oscar Isaac make this movie better for you?
Oscar Isaac, the most beautiful man on this planet. No, I don't think he would have fit in anywhere in this film. I wouldn't have wanted to see him get murdered or mutilated or shoved into a bear. And, you know, as a gorgeous Guatemalan man, I don't think he would have fit terribly well into, you know, a Swedish pastoral landscape.
Maybe not. Maybe he would have. Maybe not. But yeah, I don't think his beautiful face or his acting. Yeah, there's nothing like. There's no moment where I was just like, man, this part could really use.
Yeah,
some Oscar
no,
Isaac.
there's no reason to shoehorn in Oscar Isaac into Midsommar. No.
Well, second question.
Yeah.
Which character would you like Oscar Isaac to have played?
Since I didn't want to see him get killed, and I know how charming and beautiful he is, he could have been Pele. Pele?
Pele.
No, Pele is a Hawaiian deity. Pali is, I think, his name. Anyways. I don't know. I would have said him, or, yeah.
No, that works.
Yeah,
have him be the.
It's tough. Yeah.
Have him be the future romance.
Yeah.
For
Because, you know, good for you, Florence Pugh Pugh. Get yourself some Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, Oscar Isaac though not quite passing as a Swedish man.
No, not. He can do many things.
He can do,
including me, but I don't think he can pull off being a Swedish man. And that's our episode on Midsommar, which we hope you enjoyed as much as we've enjoyed making it. Coming down the line very quickly here, we have got a very special episode on June 28th for Pride, which will be Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, the absolute drag classic and one of my most favorite films on this planet. So I'm very excited to talk about that one. Beyond that, I believe next week's The Dark Knight, which I'm super thrilled to talk about, might be another really long Batman. It's going to be a very long Batman episode. And part 2 of Nolan Fest. You can join us on Instagram at movieminglepod. You can join us on Letterboxd at movieminglepod. You can join us on YouTube at movieminglepodcast. And email us at movieminglepod@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and love. Thank you so much for listening. As always, we appreciate each and every one of you. Feel free to rate and review and leave 5 stars across the board. And, yeah, we love you all. Now, go out and mingle.
Are you an effective team?
We are an effective team.
Let them fight.
How did you just do that?
I'm a really good lawyer.
Here on Caladan, we've ruled by air power and sea power. On Arrakis, we need to cultivate desert power.
Welcome, Mr. Beach. What's that bar? I'm a little confused.
Well, we wouldn't want that, would we?
I don't want to brag, but I will. I was in the Avengers.
The Avengers?
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
What is that?
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Toga, 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 toga.